Welcome to the Bridge of Two podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Bridge of Two podcast.
We are
Your hosts.
your host, yes. That was so fast. We are your host.
Josh and Jeremiah. Welcome. We've started this is I think the second time we started it, and it's been, 15 minutes?
12.
Close enough.
So, what's new besides your back injury?
Not too much. Tested out today for National Registry. Our, psychomotors, doing, assessments and stuff like that. And it was a very stressful day. Very stressful 6 hours of my life. Where we had 6 different stations, and after each station, we did not know the instructors had to be blank faced, just read you off your stuff, let you do your thing, not really tell you anything, and then when you left, they weren't allowed to tell you if you passed or not.
Okay.
And so you just had to until the very end of the day. At the very end of the day, the National Registry guy that came down and did all the paperwork basically gave you an unofficial you passed or you need a retest.
Mm.
And so it was just stressful going to all of them.
Yeah.
But
did you feel good throughout it?
yeah, I didn't have any issues. The only one I had issues was my first one, is because it was early in the morning and because I'm not the biggest fan of the instructor that did it, because she's not super competent, in my opinion. Not to be mean, but she's a nice, very nice person, but she's just not a good instructor.
Yeah, she's not good.
Shut up. But otherwise, I felt good throughout all of it.
Yeah.
So I had that today, and that's kind of partly why we were originally going to talk about Prince Caspian. Book the Prince Caspian next Narnia book today, but that has been postponed because I did not finish it or barely started.
Someone had a toast.
I had a toast and boom, whatever. Other than that, though, still been playing some Lego Star Wars, Skywalker Saga.
Any new thoughts on it?
I love it.
I've seen some posts of things that are different that people are like, we want, why'd they change this? This should be the same.
I've always heard great things about it.
Maybe they were just random.
I'm sure some people were upset that something, because they definitely changed a lot of things up.
Yeah.
But I think they changed it all, in my opinion, most of it for the better. The only issue I have with it is the actual levels are not long at all.
They're short.
They're very short. Most of the gameplay is you exploring the open world. So each episode I think has 5 or 6 levels, and they're all pretty short. You could knock them out pretty quickly. Some of them are longer, but most of them are really short. And that's my only kind of gripe with the game. Other than that, though, everything else, it's great. It's a fun, super fun game. It's got me really got me back into a Star Wars mood.
Cool. I'm not ignoring you.
I figured.
I'm not just on Instagram I was trying to find some of the comments I saw, because I saw it and I was like, oh, I wonder if Jeremiah thinks this is dumb.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't have too many issues with it. It's fun. I'm not blasting through. I was blasting through it at first, but not anymore. I'm kind of just playing it whenever I kind of hop on. So it's just been fun. It's been fun to play through the stories, the levels. I'm on episode 5 right now.
Oh, here's the thing. It's a Jango Fett. It's the meme of the dog. It's really buff, and then the really wimpy dog.
Mm-hmm.
So it says complete Saga Jango, and he's all jacked. It says shoots rockets, blasters go gnawing, just like in the movie. Flies for long distances, blows up whatever's in the way. Priceless variant, says Yayit. And then says Skywalker Saga Jango, doesn't shoot rockets, wrong blaster sound, can't fly, can't throw thermal detonators. New variant, doesn't say Yayit.
Doesn't say.
Have you seen Jango Fett yet? Have you played as him in the game yet?
I think the blaster sounds are different, but as far as I'm aware, I don't know. I don't remember fully. I think that's such a weird. That's more of just a meme gripe than anything.
Yeah, you're probably right.
I liked that level, the Geonosis level, where you play as Mace and can fight Jango.
Uh-huh.
That was actually a pretty fun level.
Cool.
But it's just they've added the combats different. Like you can do like combos and like using the force just feels different. I don't know. It's just a fun game in general. It's just
Cool.
super fun. So I've been playing that. I've been playing Overwatch again with my brother.
Oh, nice.
I guess they're coming out with Overwatch 2 soon. So, but we've been playing that, and that's actually been really fun to play with him. We were playing Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, but something was up with the network, so we don't think we're going to be able to play together, sadly, because that's something with his internet or mine or whatever.
Yeah.
So we were playing Overwatch instead, and that's been really fun. Yeah, that's kind of it for video games for me. I've been doing a lot of schoolwork and stuff. I have started reading Republic Commando again.
Yeah,
And I just finished the first book.
Yeah,
a couple of days, like a day. Yeah, a couple of days ago. I don't remember.
Nice.
But that, I love those books, and it's been really fun reading them again. So I started the second book.
Good old Omega Squad.
Then Cal just entered the story. Cal Sciarta.
He just entered the story?
He only enters in the second book. He's mentioned in the first book.
Oh my
he doesn't
word!
He's
I
not
forgot
a thing.
about that.
He's like the first perspective you get in the second book, though.
Yeah,
and he gets the perspective of back when he first gets the Knolls.
I'm sure they talk about him in the first book.
He's mentioned.
He's like, did they call him Cal Buer in the first book, or was that only when they started working with the Arcs more?
It is only when they start working with the Arcs.
The Knolls.
Yeah, the Knolls are the first. I think Ordo is the first one to call him.
Man, I gotta reread that series.
But he's mentioned decently enough. He's mentioned as their sergeant decently enough, but not like.
I'm getting feels right now, like remembering reading that series.
Just Attain and Darman's just.
Does he remind you of Dalinar, kind of?
Sciarta?
Yeah.
Really? But I've also just started reading it again,
okay.
So like I only just got to the part
just
where
the like general kind of like the somewhat fatherly general kind of archetype. I don't know, kind of fits it.
He almost reminds me a little bit more of not necessarily. I mean, he's kind of like a bit of like Cal, where he like really cares for his men.
Oh yeah, that's true. He's like old man Cal.
Yeah, like old man Cal, who's also a little bit less depressed.
I'd read that book. I'd read that book.
Read that book.
Yeah, without the crushing depression.
So that's been good. That's really good. That first chapter with the Null arcs, where like it's explaining what's going on, like when Cal's first goes to Camino and is introduced to the Null arcs as kids, and that whole little section is just so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. Those are good books.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
I'm really glad I decided to read them again.
Yeah. We've said it before on the podcast, but we'll say it again. If you are a Star Wars fan and you have never read the Republic Commando books, if you've ever read a Star Wars book, like that's a Star Wars book that you got to read.
Yes. If you're going to pick one,
that's just a Star Wars, what's the word? Like a prism. Like looking through at seeing a different refraction of Star Wars, the way of looking at the clones, the way of looking at the Jedi and the Clone Wars and all that. It really changes the way you think about it.
Or even if you're just like a military sci-fi fan, like if you're just like,
oh yeah,
like
it's
just
great
special
military
forces or military
sci-fi.
type sci-fi stuff. Like that's great. Like sometimes you read it, and you're like, this is Star. Like even reading the first book, I've read it once. Like there's some sections I'm like, this is. I forget that this is Star Wars. Like
it's very authentic,
very deep stuff in it. With like even when it comes to like combat and the effects it has on people, and everything like that. Like it delves very deeply into that stuff. Which is so cool about it.
Imperial. One of the most memorable things from the Imperial Commando book that I read, a couple years ago. Finally, it's after Order 66, and they're now Imperial Commandos, and they're trying to. They're following orders, but the war is like it's supposed to be over, and they're kind of grappling with
what do we do?
What are we supposed to be doing, and is what we're doing actually worth anything? Like, is it worth it? And our men are still dying when we won the war. Why, and there's this particular character that has a real hard time with that, and
because of circumstances as well.
Yeah.
We're Darman.
Niner is good squad leader.
Niner's a good guy. Good old Niner. And Fee. I called him Fee.
Of course you would.
What'd you call him?
Fi.
It's Fee. Did you really call him Phi?
It's foe.
Phi, Phi, boom, boom. That's your squad right there. That's Echo Squad. That was Phi's first squad.
Poor Phi.
Oh, poor Phi.
Who's on first? Okay.
Atten. You call
That's
him
right,
Atten,
of
okay.
course.
And then Einar and Darman, right?
Yeah.
And then Cal.
Yeah.
And Elaine.
No, Kale.
I mean, Attain.
Elaine.
Joking.
You saying that?
I
How
really
do you say your full name though?
I can't remember.
Attain. It's like Attain Tour Mercata.
I can't remember.
Termukata.
Anyway, yeah, Karen Travis is a great military.
Yeah, she's
author.
written. Yeah, she's written
a lot.
Gears of War books. She's written Halo books. She's written
The Galaxy's a Dumpster Fire series that we've read. She's written. She's written a few prequel books for that,
right?
Which my dad said was really good.
I think she's written like an original series that's also kind of like a military sci-fi series. So I'm pretty sure she was in the military.
I think so. So that was So I'm just love reading those again. And then I'm got back on the audiobooks for Galaxy's Edge or The Galaxy's Dumpster Fire.
As one does.
So I'm
You're
about to finish the fourth book. Which I forgot the fourth book. It's just like because the first book it's very sci-fi military following this squad of soldiers who are stuck in this planet. And then you have the second book, which takes place like 10 years in the future, 20 years in the future, and it's like third person. And it's more of an actual like Star Wars-y sci-fi thing where it goes between different characters. Then you have the third book, which I don't think you read the third book, but the third book goes right back to where book one ended.
Left off, yeah.
And you follow the squad, but then you also get like in between chapters that are written in second perspective about a different character completely. And that character, his story is taking place when the first book is, or right before the first book and as the first book's happening.
Oh.
Right? And then so those two stories intertwine. And then you get to the fourth book. The fourth book has absolutely nothing to do with the main characters we've seen or talked about. They have to do with the
Is it like set up for something else?
There's like I don't know if you mentioned or I don't know if it's mentioned or talked about. Kind of in the second book, they talk about like an army that's being built, and that's where
I think that's how the second book ends with
this army
with this weird army that they have like weird, like really crazy good weapons
like
and armor.
Troopers and
But
Golf Solus is.
But they come, and they come out of like a black hole or some weird quantum temple or whatever for what they call it.
So the fourth book is them attacking a planetary system.
Okay.
And the entire book takes place within the span of probably like 4 to 5 hours. And it's just that whole battle between them, this like planetary defense weapon, the planet, and as well as like the Republic coming in to try and defend it. And it goes between the different perspectives of starfighter pilots, ground troops, the admirals in the things. It's really weird. And it times it all. So you know when things are supposed to be happening. It's really interesting. But it's once again, it's a completely separate change from how they were writing the books before. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And then if I'm correct, I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, the fifth book takes place also at the same time as this book 4 does. But we're back to the perspective of our main characters.
Huh.
And then what is happening with them in this scenario. Because they are in it, just you don't know it at all in book 4. It's just weird because you have characters.
I wonder if those are traditionally published because doing that interesting stuff and weird stuff with the pacing.
I'm pretty sure they're only Kindle.
Okay.
I want to say.
So that's probably why, because with traditional publishing, it's unless you're like really well-known author, you're not going to get that much room to like say, okay, now the next book's not even going to be covering the main characters.
I love it though. Like it's definitely unconventional.
Yeah. But
it's super cool.
Well, it makes you more invested in the series than just the characters. So it's kind of smart from a standpoint of like, especially when you think about now with Galaxy's Edge is, you've told me about there's the main series, there's like a prequel series, there's I think spin-off books that cover what's his name?
Tyrus Rex, maybe?
Tyrus Rex, I think.
The Savage Wars.
There's probably more than that spinoffs. So now you have people because of the way it's written, because of the way it's gotten you to be more invested in the world and all these different and the galaxy is a dumpster fire kind of motif or whatever you want to call it. The tone, yeah.
It's all just it's just very different, but it's super fun. I've really enjoyed listening to this read because it's just weird because you would think, a book where you don't see the main characters pretty much at all, Minus a few, like there's a few that we know of that are being talked about. There's actually one character in it that is a main character, but he's in a place that you don't expect him to be. I don't want to spoil it in case you decide you want to read him again or continue reading him. But it's just very.
Don't expect him to be.
It's very interesting. So
inside a giant space cucumber.
I guess that would be a place you wouldn't expect him to be. Anyway, so that's what I've been up to. I've enjoyed the audiobook. I've been listening to them audiobook wise, and
cool.
Good. Very good. What have you been up to?
I want to get back into like reading more series and books and stuff again. Blasting through stuff. I've just been writing a lot, but I'm hoping I'll get to do that soon, maybe this later spring and summer.
Give yourself a little bit of a writing break.
I'm going to try to. Only thing is, I'll just mention it in vague terms because I think it'll be fine to mention. Just
I don't know. They know the podcast now.
They'll find us. They'll listen. They'll hear.
They'll ban you immediately.
So there is a app that was released recently. I won't say the name of it.
I'm not under contract, so I'm not playing.
I'm not under contract either. Actually,
oh, that's right. You aren't.
They've got to send it to me. But we just talked today about it. But this app came out recently. It is I don't know if you call it flash fiction or whatever. It's like short, episodic stories, science fiction, fantasy, and they were looking for like more authors and stories to kind of have exclusively on the app. And so I submitted a short story I had that wasn't doing anything, and
great short story.
They said we want to talk to you more about it. We like it, and we talked about it today, and the plan will be for me to continue that story with those characters, and maybe if all goes well, if the contract is good, then maybe this summer it might be published on that app with some, with a cover art and with these things called lore.
Ooh, maybe I could do the cover. How does that work? Do they do their own cover art?
They probably have.
Lame.
They were hiring. I don't know if they still are. They were
not that good.
Get better.
You should be like, my one stipulation is my co-host. My co-host has to do the art.
They'll be like, see ya. Or you could do it, and then if they're like, this is what we were thinking of, I'd be like, yeah, I was thinking more like this.
See, you guys would think that, but like, how about this? And they're going to be like, well, that's trash.
Well, anyway, so
I have a question. I'm sure you have no clue, but like, say you did get a contract with this, how often would you have to put out episodes? Because I know they do it episodically. Like, how often would you have to put out what's like 1,000 words an episode?
There are stories on this app that they release
daily.
Episodes daily.
Yeah, I saw that because I was looking earlier.
And I could not commit to that.
Like, I wonder if they would have a stipulation of like, you have to get this much out in a certain amount of time, or if they kind of leave that open to you.
Today, in the meeting, it didn't feel like it was... They didn't say, like, this is what you have to do. They said, this is what we want to see. This is what we're looking for, And that, basically, like, they're looking for a certain number of free episodes and then a certain number of episodes that are unlockable with their, like, in-app currency. Mm-hmm. And then beyond those, like, maybe let's say 15 episodes, they would want, like, it'd be good to have like 20 to 30 episodes as a buffer so that you can so that you aren't under the gun constantly
makes sense.
Because that's something I definitely don't want, is to be
constantly being rushed or feel like you're being rushed.
To be like, I cannot take a single break because 1,000 words, 1,500 words is not a lot, but in a typical like 2-hour writing session, you're going to do between like new writing, like new words is it's hard to do more in a couple hours.
Whoa, man, you're making new words.
300.
Sorry.
When you're making new words, I mean, sometimes you are.
That's fair.
You're naming something like, what do I name this thing? What do I name this place?
Shamalama ding dong.
What do I name this magic? But yeah, 300 to 600 words, in like an hour and a half, 2 hours. Sometimes that's like all you can do. Sometimes you can do more. I can do a lot of words in a fight scene.
Fight scenes are fun to write.
Like
though.
when you're doing a fight scene, it's like very easy to write. But like in between that, you have to think more about what you're developing and everything. But,
world building can also be very wordy too, though.
Yes, that's
but
true.
it has to be done
when
in a
you
good
decide
way.
to describe things. Yeah.
Sometimes world building can be too wordy.
Right. So, yeah, I definitely think that that's right by them, for them to encourage that, and so hopefully, I can get a buffer. But we'll just, we'll see how it goes.
That's exciting.
But yeah, it's exciting. It is exciting. It feels there's a lot of unknowns, and it's different, and it's change, and it's kind of a little bit of anytime you attempt something and you actually like get out there, and it's even if it's in a little while, even if it's like just like even starting this podcast, it's like that initial okay, we're doing this now.
Yeah,
it's a different feeling, and you don't know how to what's gonna happen.
No, absolutely.
But I hope it'll be good in the long run.
Yeah, I'm sure ultimately whatever happens, it'll be good.
Yeah, if anything,
How's your
more experience?
How's your book coming?
It's coming well. I just I wish I could like lock myself away for 2 weeks.
Do it. Just do it.
And just finish, because it's close. It's really close, but it's also really important. The stuff I'm writing right now, it's everything coming together, you know.
Yeah.
All the threads coming together, and so as they're coming together, I'll start seeing how, oh wait, I can't do this because of that. I can't do it. It's like this because of that. And so like that has taken some time. There's been times where I've sat down to write and I've just had to like pace around and just think through it for a while,
I feel like this would really be something that you want to pace yourself with, not rush it. You don't want to rush. You want to be patient.
Right. And that's kind of,
right.
That's where I'm at, because I was like, I wanted to have it done, at the end of March, end of April, all this stuff. But at the same time, if I just write something just to get it done, then it's going to just be more work. Untangling whatever I tangled.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, but what I'm figuring out and getting to, I'm liking, and I'm excited to give it to a couple people. I feel like I've kind of, the further I get, I'm like, I think I might just let a couple people read it.
I better be one of those couple people.
Yes, you are.
Good.
Because I feel like it'll be maybe more valuable to have more beta readers after I get feedback from the first people that read it.
For sure. I think that's...
Because then I can do another draft with that feedback in mind and make it tighter.
Yeah. No, I think that makes sense.
Rather than wasting more people's time.
As long as I'm an alpha reader, I'm okay. I don't care what you do.
For the right price.
For the right price.
Yeah, you can unlock the secrets.
Gosh. Premium content.
I also want to say I've been playing
Y'all can't see it, but he put a finger up.
Index finger.
Index finger up.
Friendly finger.
No, he flipped me off. Don't let him lie to you.
Friendly finger.
You've been playing.
I've been playing Brain Died.
No Man's Sky?
No Man's Sky, yeah.
I know that. I think you told me the other day.
Did I mention it in the last podcast that I broke down? I don't think I'd played it much at that point.
I think you just said that you started it.
I've played it a good bit more. I'm really enjoying it a lot. Huh. It's a lot of fun.
Interesting. I saw it on sale the other day. I almost picked it up, but I don't know, the funds.
Yeah. It's one of those I've thought about it for years.
Yeah.
So I kind of like feel justified. But it's definitely a good game. There's just so many different things you can do in it, and the thing I like about it compared to, there's another game called Elite Dangerous that is a space sim, and it's very beautiful game, and like the graphics in space and in your ships and all this thing are really cool. It's cool in Elite Dangerous how you there's like a very real feeling of the size of the Milky Way galaxy, because it's like a 1-for-1 Milky Way galaxy. And so even when you're traveling faster than light, you going from point A to point B, it could take you days.
Wow.
Like, cause like you start in this one part of the galaxy. If you wanted to actually, you could go to the center of the Milky Way galaxy, but it will take you days, literal days, even doing faster than light travel. Because
like in game days or in real world
in
days?
world, because the time it takes you in game and in world is the same. It's just the thing that makes it, not take millennia or whatever is the faster than light technology in the game.
Wow. That's interesting.
That being said, if you want to get in a game and do something and play it, Elite Dangerous is a game where you're not going to get much done really quick. So if you don't have a lot of time to invest, then you're not going to feel like you're accomplishing anything, or it's good. You're spending your time well if you want to play a game. So No Man's Sky, on the other hand, getting in that game, you can feel like you're accomplishing a lot, and it still has the feeling of a sim a little bit, and a little bit of a survival feel, because every planet you go to has different survival things you're looking out for. Some planets are more radioactive. Some planets have acid rain, so there's like toxicity in the air. Some planets, in general, just the oxygen, you don't have unlimited oxygen or whatever. So you're constantly like refilling those things. But then you have this tool that's this called the manipulator on your mining tool that you add onto your tool pretty early in the game. And that you can just mine just straight into the ground into almost any material. And so you can be like, I'm heading towards this like, I need to get over on this other side of this mountain or this hill, and I don't want to run up it and down it. So you just like burrow straight through it.
That's hilarious.
But then when you do that, you just like, you'll accidentally like drop down into like, there's like an underground cavern.
Oh, that's cool.
Like poisonous plants and stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh,
It's like Minecraft.
It is like Minecraft with good graphics, maybe. I haven't played Minecraft, so I don't know exactly, but that does ring a little bit true. But then you can, so you're mining, as you do that, you're getting some materials, and then you're mining carbon, other things. After I'd already built my base, I was like, oh, I should have built it like after I got the manipulator tool, I was like, I could have like hollowed out like the side of a mountain and like built because there's, as you get a little bit further in the game, it doesn't take long. And that's one thing I like about this game too. There's a lot opens up really quick. It's not like late game or end game where everything opens up. So, like space pirates will just start attacking.
Oh.
And so far it's not been like ground combat. It's just been all in the air. So you can like hop in your ship.
That's fun.
And just start fighting them. And then you earn like reputation with people because you fought off pirates and stuff. If you wanted to, I mean, you could build a whole tunnel system so you would never have to even like run up on the surface.
That's pretty cool.
Or whatever. So I was like, oh no. So you can, with the manipulator tool, you can also add material. Like you can.
Oh.
So I made a cave.
So you made a mountain.
So I painted a cave. So like, it was a little tedious, but it was really rewarding because I'm just like painting like just a line of stone, and then I did like the perimeter, and then I filled it in.
That's awesome.
And then I left.
That's cool.
I left some like holes for like skylights, and then I unlocked, material for actual like siding and stuff. So then I actually put siding and roofs and things like that, and like doors that open and close, and
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's cool.
It's cool.
So like there's a lot you can do. It just seems like there's a lot you can do in that game.
Yeah, definitely.
From what I've heard about it.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm trying to think if there's any other random funny things about that game. It's just, I don't know, like you can you can just like just go onto an alien planet, just land, and then there's like some animals, and just make little pellets that you can feed them. And then I discovered by doing that, there was like this thing that was pretty big that had wings, looked kind of like a dragon, and Ellie was like, "It's a dragon. Can you ride it?" I was like, "I don't know." And I fed it, and then it was like, "Ride."
Oh my.
Like one of the options, it didn't say ride.
Oh.
You thought it said
I'm just imagining this ride.
ride now.
But you could have the option for you to ride
Yeah, all of a
it.
sudden it was like, I forget, there was a couple options and one of them was ride. And I was like, I could ride it. So I just
pretty
started
cool.
riding this thing.
That's awesome.
It didn't fly, but
Oh, that's lame.
yeah.
Whatever.
Physics wise, probably wouldn't have worked anyway. But yeah.
It's a sci-fi game. Physics don't matter.
So it's a fun game for
That's
sure.
cool. I totally forgot too. I've been, I just throw this in there. I've been watching Moon Knight on Disney Plus.
Oh, really? I've been wanting to watch it because it looks really interesting.
I am caught up. I think there's an episode coming out today. It is very interesting. Oscar Isaac is doing a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
Like there's a couple scenes where he's like a split personality type of thing.
Right.
And he like goes literally from one personality to the next and you instantly just switches and it's like, I mean, his acting is pretty phenomenal. In it. Story seems interesting too. And like Egyptian stuff is just more mythology is really interesting. It's just,
Okay.
just forgot that Marvel is just like, let's just take all the mythology and throw it into here. So like,
Everything
they got like
everything
Greek,
is
Egyptian,
Yeah, everything is canon.
fair game.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, I just wanted to mention that's pretty cool.
Cool.
Watched the episode. The episode yesterday was actually the episode that I watched yesterday. Is the fourth episode ended in like a mind trip. Like I
heard
was like-
episode 4 was like a crazy.
and I was
episode.
watching. I was like, what in the world's happening? Like I'm
Really?
so confused. Yeah, it became a mind trip. Like I was like, what the heck?
I was just thinking the other day. I'd like to watch that, but I'm like, I don't even know if Aaron would be interested.
She might. It's pretty interesting.
It's like too much, but I don't know.
I don't know. Definitely this fourth episode is I'm ready to watch the next one because it was such a mind trip. It was like, what?
Is it like 6 episodes, or do you know?
I think it's gonna be. I think it's probably gonna be 6, like everything else that they make. I'm so tired of TV shows being like 6 episodes long. It's just like I want to go back to the days with like Arrow, where it was like 20 episodes, or 24, where it was like 24 episodes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
We'll do a compilation episode of all of the times we've complained about how many episodes are in things.
that's right. That's a pretty common complaint. It's a valid complaint. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Well, anything else we should say?
I think that's good for me.
Come back. We're gonna have a drink break, and you can please come back.
and you can please go back.
We're gonna be talking about heroes and villains.
Yeah.
Just like what makes good heroes and good villains, and kind of open-ended topic. So we'll be back shortly.
Yes, we will.
Bye-bye. We're back, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back.
We don't have a new drink for you. We have an old drink for
We have
you.
an old drink.
This is the first drink we ever drunk.
The OG drink.
On the podcast, we tried the first episode, Buckland Mead from Groenfell Meadery, which we've tried many of their drinks on, and we'll probably try some more of their stuff soon.
Because their stuff is delicious.
And they constantly come out with new stuff. But this was the first one, and it was a really good experience, and so we have more of it still because we bought more of it. And yeah. So we're going to drink some more Buckland Mead. This has been sitting in my fridge for a while, so I'm just hoping it's gone even better.
Hopefully we don't die.
Would you do the honors of reading the description?
Always. As the ground thaws and snows melt, and green things come back to the land,
Finally.
Buckland Mead springs into being.
Aha!
Made from fresh lemon, green rooibos, and 100% wildflower honey,
Ooh.
Buckland Mead might just be the world's most refreshing mead.
Darn it, I think they're right.
They might just be right.
Inject it into my veins.
Let's find out. That sounds dangerous. Crisp and refreshing.
Gonna spring into being into my mouth.
I forgot how good this one was.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff.
What is rooibos?
Huh?
Green rooibos.
I don't know, but I really like the confidence with which you pronounce that. I was like, how is he? Is he gonna falter here?
I just went for it.
You did. You said it like that was the only way anyone should ever say it.
Let's find out if I said it right.
Ruabos.
Ruabos.
I don't think you did, but
Shut up.
if it's not pronounced that way, it should be. Just like Jasna.
It's a T. Jasna is right and will always be right. Oh, apparently it's Ruibos. Well, then they shouldn't have spelled it the way they did.
Not on this show.
They should not have spelled it the way they did. They wanted
on this show, it's Ruabos, and I will fight whoever says differently. Even you.
I wanted someone to tell me how to say it.
Ruabos.
Ruibos.
Ruabos. Ruabos.
Wiktionary. That sounds terrifying. Is this like
your soul will be lost?
To tell, yeah.
It's like it's probably like tell you like the etymology of the word or something, right? Like the history of the word.
I don't know. I think this should tell me. Ruibos. Apparently it's pronounced Ruibos.
Ruibos.
Not Ruibos. Ruibos sounds cooler, so that's what I'm going with. Apparently Rui means red and Bosch, bush, red bush.
Oh. What do you know?
I have gone too deep into this word. Let's continue. Let's
we have to go deeper. Okay, so Heroes and Villains. That's a song by the Beach Boys.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's a good song, actually. It's pretty... It was ahead of its time.
What's that movie that was on Disney Channel way back when? With the superheroes in high school that floats. You ever watch that?
What was it on?
Disney Channel.
Disney Channel, superheroes in high school. And do you say that floats?
The school floats. Just give me a second, I'll find it.
Well,
I don't know why, but
Are you thinking of the movie?
Yeah, it's a movie.
Sky High.
Sky High.
Yeah, I saw that movie.
I used to love that movie.
I liked it mostly.
It really wasn't that good.
Well, the thing about movies like that is part of the appeal is the sort of wish fulfillment, of like, wouldn't it be amazing?
Yes.
If you, and obviously, the movies usually explore like how it's the difficulties of being a superhero kid.
Oh, so difficult.
Yeah.
It's so hard to have superpowers.
The privilege. The privilege way is so heavy. But,
superhero privilege.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was an interesting movie.
I don't know why that made me think of it. It's just heroes and villains. I don't know. For some reason, it just made me think of Sky High.
Sky High, yeah. Why not?
Disregard.
Did you ever see, even older than Sky High, I think it's called Up, Up, and Away? It was a Disney Channel original movie. Sky High was not, I don't think Sky High was a theatrical movie. It came out. It was probably a Disney movie, but Sky Up, 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 and Away was a similar premise, only they didn't go to a school. They were like... It was basically the parents were superheroes. I don't know if the kids knew.
Yes, I do. I have seen.
And then the kids' powers started showing up, and they had to like protect their identities. That was a movie I loved when I was.
Wow, was
younger.
this really? Was he really in this?
Who? Who was in it?
Chris Marquette.
Who's that? Oh, okay. He was in Up, Up, and Away.
Apparently, since he's the cast, he played Randy.
Oh man, I don't remember.
Whoever Randy is.
I mean, the main character in that movie was. Like it was like a family. They were an African American family. Maybe he was like a friend, best friend, or something.
Anyway, we're way off topic already.
No, we're on topic.
Let's name more Disney Channel movies.
Heroes and Villains. Check them out. Up, Up, and Away, and Sky High.
Yeah, we're endorsing Disney now.
They'll help you understand. You were the one talking about Moon Knight.
That's true. I'm endorsing
filthy
this.
Disney watcher.
I am. How dare I?
We're all about to be in a month when Obi-Wan comes out.
Yeah, they've roped us in good. Kind of bums me out that Disney's the one who bought Star Wars.
I know.
I also feel like they've just kind of ruined Star Wars too.
It's not just Disney though. Like it wouldn't have. I don't know. I don't know if it would have mattered.
That's we're going way off topic at this point. Let's.
All right, I'll pull it back. Yeah. So the kind of what I was first thinking about. I don't know if this is jumping forward too much, but I just need a place to start. is how a lot of times in stories, the hero and the villain, they're either sometimes they're friends when the story starts. Sometimes they're not, but they have similar backstories. You know, and it's all about. They're not the same people because that's kind of what sets apart, like why one becomes a hero and one becomes a villain, because it's how they've responded to similar circumstances.
Yes,
and that's kind of why the hero is the hero and the villain's the villain, is because, or at least that's why the hero is because there's something about them that is similar to the villain that they can understand and somehow overcome because of it. You know, I mean, you got like Harry Potter is like a really good example of this. You know, you got Harry Potter, because of how Voldemort tried to kill him, it connected them. And so he grew up being able to speak to snakes. Voldemort had a wand that had the same like magical core in it. So it was like linked to his wand. I think like too, when they went back into his memories, you know, he had troubled family life. You know, I feel like he lived with his uncle, like he lived with like an uncle and aunt as well. He
was in an orphanage for a while too.
He was because
he
killed his his family.
That's always an interesting aspect between the hero and the villain is in some stories how the same circumstances can have two different reactions for two different people, causing one to be a hero and and then the other one to become a villain. I think thinking on now, a decent example of this would be almost like Kaladin and Moash.
Yeah,
they have relatively similar instances of, they're different, but in the same instances in the Light Eyes, the higher ups, the higher class people, doing something to affect the family member, or to affect the family of Kaladin and Moash.
Right.
Kaladin, instead of becoming a villain, I mean, he obviously didn't like Light Eyes, and he struggled with that, and almost did do the wrong thing. But fought back against that, and instead became a hero. Instead become to see the people differently. Whereas Moash hung onto that anger so much that it turned him into a villain. Right. Spoilers.
And and that's with any good character, you have like that internal conflict that's happening within them. It's how are they dealing with circumstances, and how are they dealing with their own internal like flaws and demons and things like that, and how they respond to that is kind of like there's a clear line between what path they end up on based off of how they respond to that. A lot of times too in a story, Harry Potter and not quite as much with Moash, but similar. There's in Harry Potter, that's one thing they kind of like highlight the difference between Voldemort and Harry is the support he had around him.
Yes.
Although you could look at Voldemort and see how he kind of alienated and pushed people away, but Harry had friends, he had people that loved him, mentors that loved him, looked out for him, and he really did still have a family, even though he was an orphan, and even though his aunt and uncle could care less for him, he still had a home, had friends, and that sort of thing, and he had, something to fight for and a reason to, this external thing that it's like, I can't let this consume me because I have these things outside of me that I have to protect, I have to care about. And sort of similar to Kaladin, because Moash, even though he had Bridge 4 and Kaladin also had Syl, which is she was a big, kind of almost like internal conscience, kind of steering him towards a higher opportunity for like who he could become,
So it's definitely interesting to always, what I like in a villain is a villain that can be almost sympathized with, but also like kind of like you understand their reasoning and why they're doing what they're doing.
Right.
Or they have a clear goal and you can almost understand their goal, even though it's wrong and they're going about it the wrong way.
Right.
You can still understand it.
Yeah, I think
Moash is like, I hate him to death, but
right.
at the same time, he's been brought to this by circumstances, and you understand the circumstances. Do I agree with him? No, but I understand where he's coming from. Because you also have villains that just kind of are evil for this sake of evil, but that can also be done well too. The Joker is a great example of that. The Joker is just a chaotic being who wants to bring chaos to the world, and I think that also makes a good villain. He doesn't necessarily have any reason as to why he's evil. He's just evil. But he also acknowledges that he's evil.
Except for the most recent.
I haven't seen it.
Adaptation. I haven't either, but there's enough memes and
I haven't seen any of the memes either.
And clips that it's he's definitely in that movie the protagonist, in a sense that he's figuring out how to come to terms with the pressures of society and the way society has let him down.
That seems kind of boring. That's one reason why I like the Joker so much as a villain, is because he doesn't have any reason for why he's doing what he's doing. He just wants chaos.
I prefer that too. I prefer like the Dark Knight Joker,
like Heath Ledger's Joker, or even Mark Hamill's Joker.
It's like he's just like he's like, it's almost like he's there by virtue of Batman.
He's a psychotic being.
It's like
he is a psychopath, and he is at this point latched onto this Batman,
right?
And he does see them as inseparable.
And that is an interesting example of how a lot of times the hero rises up in response to the villain, or is kind of like coming up because there's this villain and they have a connection and they kind of rise to the occasion. But then you have, in this case with Batman, Alfred talks in one scene of The Dark Knight about how the crime lords, they turned, in their desperation, like they turned to a man that they didn't fully understand. It's like, because Batman has come along, now a different level of criminal comes along. Not just your standard mob boss and things like that, but someone who is, truly an ideal. They're just embodying this ideal of chaos, whereas he's embodying this ideal of a legend that is there to protect people, help people.
I like the thought of that. I like that. Like, I'm a big fan of the Heath Ledger Joker and just that chaotic Joker.
Yeah, no, me too.
But it's also an interesting thought. And what I like I think what I like about some of the DC comics is they really kind of come into the that aspect of villains being raised up by the hero instead of heroes being built because of villains. Because most stories are, you have a villain, this villain is terrorizing people, so you have someone who comes up as the hero to stop the villain. Where DC seems, especially with Batman in particular, I think the Green Arrow shows, but in particular, like Arrow kind of talks about it a little bit, where you have this hero who is doing these different things, and then villains are brought up from that hero because of this. And it's an interesting way to go about it, because it's kind of showing like, at that point, who's wrong? Who is in the wrong here? Because, obviously the villain is, and they're terrorizing people, but like they're also brought on by the hero. Or would this person have come up even if the hero wasn't there?
Right.
Or, it's just an interesting thought.
Right.
Exercise.
It raises interesting questions for the hero. The hero has to ask, and that's something that the Green Arrow does do in the show. Frequently have to ask the question, am I doing more good? Am I really, like, when everything is said and done, have I actually done net good, or has the good I've done caused just as much chaos and things to come out of it, or not? And that's definitely, and that's part of the reason. That's part of what a good villain does, is raises those questions, forces the hero. It creates that internal conflict for the hero, that it's not just, you have to stop me before I blow up this, hospital. It's, you...
Do I look like a man with a plan?
It's, you have to also grapple with the relationship between the villain, yourself, the hero, and the villain, and how in some ways you may bear some responsibility for that villain. Yeah.
But then also a good villain, in my opinion, is one that starts out as a good way to get a villain is one that starts out as a hero.
Right.
One of my favorite examples is Anakin Skywalker, who you know, in the sense of Star Wars, was a hero. He's supposed to be the chosen one. He's supposed to bring balance to the Force, take down the Sith. He is this up and coming Jedi. He is a general in the army, very respected by his troops and by people, only to eventually fall to the dark side.
Right.
To become, as Obi-Wan says, to become the very thing he swore to destroy. You know, this aspect of the hero becoming the villain. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you know, I know a lot of people have a lot of issues with the prequels, and some people have issues with how Anakin became Darth Vader. But I think it's done pretty well. When you really pay attention to different things, I think it's very well especially when you pay attention to what Palpatine is doing to Anakin, and as well as just the dark side influence. Does a good job. And then that also brings in the redemption arc of, you know, because Anakin gets that redemption in a sense at the very end of Episode 6. With Luke Skywalker, and because his son believed that Anakin Skywalker was still in there, that the dark side hasn't, you know, Darth Vader hasn't fully taken over, that dark side hasn't fully taken over him, and there is still good in him, you know, which I also think is Luke Skywalker is a perfect epitome of a hero, someone who he didn't necessarily defeat the bad guy. He just trusted in his father enough to do the right thing, you know?
And part of the way he succeeded was not becoming the bad guy, not becoming the villain. You know, his father was telling him, join me. Instead of me coming back to the light, you come to the dark. And that was a big part of Luke's, you know, once again, fitting in with that idea that the hero and the villain, a lot of times their storylines parallel. And Luke has to grapple with, this is somewhat a part of me, this legacy of the dark side because of who my father is. And he has that scene where he's supposed to go into that cave, the dark side cave or whatever, and fights Darth Vader. And then whenever he cuts off Darth Vader's head, it reveals his face inside the mask, which obviously foreshadows, because that was before he knew that it was his father, but it's foreshadowing, but it's also alluding to that inner conflict of he has to avoid becoming that, and that that is a possibility that he could go down that path if he doesn't, you know. So
George Lucas does it expertly too, you know, because George Lucas talks all the time about how the movies rhyme, the stories rhyme. And I was thinking about this because Steph and I just finished watching Episode 3 not too long ago. And I was thinking about this because I was watching a video on Episode 6 on on their last battle, Luke and Vader's, and that Anakin and the Dooku fight in the beginning of Episode 3 really mirror the fight between Darth Vader and Luke in Episode 6. In the sense of you have Anakin who's fighting Palpatine's current apprentice, takes him out, and then Palpatine influences him to kill Dooku and basically ends up taking his place.
Right.
Whereas the same thing is happening with Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker's fighting Darth Vader. Luke Skywalker gets angry, uses his anger to take him out. Basically, and then Sidious is like, good, now finish him and take your rightful places at my side. Doing the same exact thing that he did to Anakin. But instead of Luke repeating Anakin's mistakes, he instead says, no, I am a Jedi like my father before me. Really showing that he is not going to let that dark side, that corruption, take him, and that he truly is the hero of the story. And he trusts in his father enough to come back as well. I don't know. It's just very interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I was telling you earlier, there's a quote by, I've seen different, I saw a different version of the quote, but there's a quote attributed to Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor and philosopher. And this version of the quote says, the noblest kind retribution is to become not like your enemy. So that's obviously, that's like a old English kind of way of saying the best way to get revenge is to not become like your enemy. And that's definitely, I think, with the way stories of heroes and villains are often constructed, that's like an ongoing, as we've said, that's an ongoing part of the hero's journey, is recognizing there's some similarities and maybe in their backstory, or that there's even similar darkness inside, Harry Potter dealing with that and Luke dealing with that, even Kaladin, that's a big part of his storyline. The same time Moash is going into that corruption arc, Kaladin is, dealing with the same emotions Moash is. And that's a very heavy thing that he's having to understand, is that becoming, like your enemies is an ultimate failure. Like that's ultimately, if there's any kind of loss, it's whenever you become your enemy. You become just like them.
And it's a big, that thought process too is it definitely influences a lot of, not even when it comes to just one hero or one villain, but like a group of people versus another group of people, of that aspect of we can't fight the same way they do.
Yeah.
We can't use their, you get what I'm saying? Kind of like we can't use their dirty tactics against us. Like, these people are willing to kill civilians and bomb civilians. We can't become like them because we'll just, at that point, what makes us different from the enemy?
Right.
And that goes back to even real world stuff of just like when, in warfare, like people using, bombing civilians, stuff like that. And it's just like, well, we can't do that, because if we do that, then what makes us any different from them?
Yeah.
Who is the hero in the story if we're both just doing the same exact thing?
That's the, that's like why the Geneva Convention exists, is the idea that, that some things should be not all should not be fair, in war.
But then sometimes too, you have that, which I think is very interesting, when you have that hero, that person who is the hero of the story, who is starting to engage in more, I guess we'll say taboo things, interrogation that is more...
Right, that temptation.
Jack Bauer is a perfect example. Mm-hmm. He is the hero of the 20... If everyone's watched the 24 show, great. If you haven't, you should watch it. But he is considered the hero, but there are times where he does things because he needs to stop the terrorists from doing what they're doing. He does things that maybe to most people would be like, hey, this might be a little bit too far. Mm-hmm. Some of the interrogation scenes, he goes a little too far. He is known for pushing a little bit too far on things to get the answers he needs to stop an even bigger threat that's happening. Yeah. But some people disagree with him, saying like, hey, you went too far. Hey, this is against the law. Hey, you shouldn't be doing this,
Right.
Even to the point of, doing things like going undercover, like, say you have a hero secret agent that goes undercover with a bad group of people. When does that person become, I have a perfect example, but I can't bring it up because it would be a spoiler for something that I don't, just in case you end up reading it or watch or listening to it, I don't want to talk about it. But there's an aspect of a character who is basically going undercover in this organization, and he ends up having to do a lot of bad things, but he's doing it for a good cause.
Because he has to be undercover.
Because he has to be undercover. And he's doing it to, and ultimately end up stopping this person.
Yeah.
Which, sadly doesn't end up working and causes a whole other slew of problems. But at what point do you now become the villain because you've let yourself engage in these things, even though you're doing it for a good cause?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's interesting to think about.
I mean, that's in Dark Knight, right? Whenever Joker has the bomb, it's in the two boats, right? And everyone's got a switch that if they flip it, the other boat will explode. But if neither of them do it within a certain amount of time, then they'll just explode both of them. Joker's trying to prove to Batman that
people are just
need a little chaos, need a little anarchy, and they'll just turn into animals, And so that's a big part of the reflecting that internal story of Batman, of not becoming like the villain, is this belief that society, also can defeat a villain by not becoming like them. They're not resorting to just selfishly looking out for their own interests, Yeah. So
who's a good hero? Name a good hero.
I mean,
not just in the sense of oh, he's a good hero, but good heroes and his reasoning for being, he just makes a good character as a hero.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know, Dalinar. I mean, so Dalinar is an interesting character. He is a character that has a redemption arc. He's a character that, in some senses, has been a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a villain, but he wasn't. And that's, and like going back to like good villains, right? It's like, if you have someone who's a villain who is not a villain because they just don't care about anyone or anything, you know, that's an interesting villain. When you have a villain who, they have a code, you know, they have a line they won't cross. A lot in D&D or whatever, you'd call that like a lawful evil, you know, a character that has a code and they're evil, but you know, I don't even know if you call Dalinar lawful evil in that he was more neutral. But the problem was that he was, whenever he was on the battlefield, he was just out of control, and it was just about win at any cost. And so it took a very severe cost for him to kind of realize what he was doing was untenable, the path that he was on. He had to change the path. So even though he was a villain, he was a person that was capable of being better. What do you think?
I mean, I think, just going to Dalinar, I think Dalinar is a great example of a hero in a story, especially one that came from, like you said, he was at once would be considered a villain. You know, and as you're talking about it, there's a quote from Oathbringer that Dalinar is speaking that I really like. Someone's talking about how he used to, basically talking about when he was a villain, about how he used to go around and slaughter, and basically he became this animal when he was enraged and in battle. And and Dalinar's talking about changing and trying to do better, and he even says sometimes a hypocrite is nothing more than a man in the process of changing. And I think that is such a good line, especially for Dalinar, as someone who is in the process of, he did bad, and he killed a lot, and he kind of in a point was a villain, but he's trying to change. And so and in the sense of his old self, he is a hypocrite, but that just means he's trying to change and do better.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting, and I just thought about that. And now I'm looking at quotes from Oathbringer, and it's just killing me. Oh gosh, this one, the most important word a man can say, or I will do better.
One thing he says is, I won't say, you know, why he said it, but one thing he says is, the most important step is not the first step, it's the next step.
I think it's someone saying it to him. It's
maybe.
Whereas I actually just saw it. Oh, here it is. The most important step a man can take. It's not the first step. It's not the first one, is it? It's the next one. Always the next step, Dalinar. I actually want to say it's Wit talking to Dalinar.
Is it?
I could be wrong, though. Okay. I know it's not Dalinar, because it says Dalinar's name, like he's talking to him.
And once again, it just goes back to, you know, what do you become? That's a big thing for Dalinar, too. His character progression is, there is a prophecy about him. There's reason to think that he might not be a redeemable character. And so, you know, that's definitely just a big part of a lot of heroes' journeys, but in particular, you know, Dalinar, once being a villain, past coming back to haunt him, and then coming back to that crossroads of, you know, how can I even, you know, overcome this, you know, or be better? What do you think?
First one that comes to my mind as a good hero, obviously, Luke Skywalker.
You? Oh.
Well, yeah, me. I'm the best hero. No, I'm awful. No, Luke Skywalker. I think Luke Skywalker makes a good hero, and I think he makes a good hero because of the journey he goes through, but also, once again, kind of that fact that, like, his story was about redeeming someone else.
Yeah.
Not him being that hero, but allowing someone else to be the hero.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which I think makes a good hero.
Seeing the best in someone.
Unwavering faith in someone. Yeah.
And that's a great thing, you know, great way to, when you're doing a redemption arc, you know, you have to buy into it. I started a book, just where the character, it was about a character that was like a mass murderer, kind of like Dalinar, but even worse than Dalinar.
Even worse.
And it was like, and the story is about him becoming, like kind of coming to grips. He's come to grips with that. He feels so guilty. He's like trying to kill himself. And then like the way it's like the way the world works, the way he tries to kill himself gives him these abilities, makes him young again. And
I think you've told me about
then
this.
he has to come to grips with like the fact that he has all this guilt, but now he has the same abilities had before, or actually more abilities, greater abilities. And so it's like, so there's like a redemption arc. I didn't really buy the redemption arc, but with Darth Vader and, you know, Luke Skywalker's story, because even before, you know, you know that he's Anakin and you've seen the prequels, the fact that he's a father,
Yeah.
it makes him relatable. And the fact that all of a sudden you see him as this character that he went astray, and that, you know, now his son wants, because you like Luke, his son wants redemption for his dad. You want it too for Luke, you know. So,
All right, who's a good villain? Who makes a good villain? Dropping those hard questions on you.
I mean, Dalinar. Dalinar's a good villain.
I'm trying to think of a villain that's not Star Wars related.
Yeah, I mean, because I'll just go to like the villains in Stormlight or whatever, you know, because those are good villains too. But okay, so I mean, like a good villain. I mean, Stormlight, but a good villain. Raboniel in Rhythm of War.
Oh,
she's a really good villain.
She's a really good villain.
Because, you know, she's what they call a fused or a ancient being. They're called singers. They're related to the Parshmen or Parshendi, and she is like a scientist. She's like a mad scientist kind of character, and she's tired. She has been alive for, you know, millennia,
Far too long.
and there's like this thing that happens with these enemies. They're the villains, but they have like you know, become immortalized by this god, and they don't really have a choice, even though they still pretty much all serve him willingly. They serve him until they go mad from just the amount of time they've been brought back and the amount of time that they've been alive. Their souls have been alive, and she knows that's coming for her someday, and she's kind of just weary of the war. It's not really that she wants her side necessarily, when she just wants to end it, and that's her motivation. And she kind of, she can empathize and understand this Navani, the queen in the story, who's also kind of like a scientist, and kind of gets her to work together with her to like make these discoveries that are very interesting and very revolutionary to this world. But she is the villain. She is a villain, and she does stay true to being a villain throughout the story, even though there's a lot of sympathetic feelings for her and even like understanding her point of view and
She even's
that
like
sort of thing.
There are even sometimes where you're like, I don't know, I actually like her character. I like her character at some
Yeah.
points. Like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like, oh, like even Navani.
She's a good
is
character,
like, yeah.
and she's not a character you hate either. She's, you know, she's somewhat of a tragic villain, if you can have that. So there we go, Brandon Sanderson. Can't get off him.
More Brandon Sanderson. Let me try and think of one. I don't know. I would obviously Star Wars. I think Darth Plagueis is a good villain.
Yeah, let's just stay true to our roots.
He's also just he's a genius. That's why I think he's such a good villain too. He's a genius, and he also just sticks to who he is and what he wants,
What he's about.
He doesn't really waver.
What is he about?
Death and destruction. I just realized I've read
just unlocking the secrets of the Force.
He's about power. He wants power. He wants power and control. That's what's so great about him. Is he literally just wants power and control. I was just looking at my Goodreads.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, because I'm trying to think of books that I've read that I'm having a hard time thinking of villains.
Thanos is a good villain, I think. You know,
Yeah, I guess.
the way Infinity War is a very interesting. I've probably talked about it before, but Infinity War is a very interesting superhero movie, because Thanos is the villain, but he's the protagonist. Like, he's the bad guy, but as far as the way the story is being told in Infinity War, he is the one who has the goal, and he's moving step by step through the obstacles, which are the Avengers, and he is achieving his goal.
It's true.
And you're seeing everything from his, not everything, but you're seeing his perspective. You're seeing that, he believes that he's doing something better for that's good for the universe. He believes that it's costing him something, that he is not giving in to the easy way, that it would be easier for him to, give up, turn aside, and ultimately, spoiler alert, there's a moment that comes where he has to kill the person he loves most, and Gamora laughs at him, thinking he has no way forward because she doesn't believe he loves anything or anyone. And he sorrowfully, tearfully grabs her and throws her over the edge. I mean, that is a villain that it's like, obviously, he's crazy.
Yes.
That is what he believes he has to do, and that he can't see that if this is what it costs, then it's not the path of good, but just like getting a villain's, perspective, and them being kind of the protagonist of the story is a very interesting, way. He's not really sympathetic, but there is some aspect of it that you understand.
You understand his thought process.
You understand his thought process
in the sense of like someone who is kind of like almost having like I don't want to say psychotic, but like what he wants is admirable, but the way he's going about it is all wrong.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
He's just fixated on this. He's learned this one lesson. Mm-hmm. What he has learned from what happened to his planet is that if there were less people on this planet, then everything would have been fine, mm-hmm. and the whole universe would be better off because of what happened on my planet. It's like it's not like he was going through and seeing, is this planet overpopulated? No, it's just like, no, just 50-50. Let's split the universe in half, and that will be good.
I have an interesting villain.
It's a lack. That character had a lack of respect for the individual, the value of an individual's life versus the masses.
Very true.
What do you got?
Superman.
As a villain?
So there's a comic book series. It's a video game and a comic book series called Injustice.
Okay.
DC Comics Injustice or whatever. Mm-hmm. In this story, basically the Joker, honestly kind of horrifying story. The beginning starts with obviously the Justice League versus the bad guys. The Joker is doing his thing again. But what the Joker does is he links a bomb to the heartbeat of Lois Lane, Superman's wife. And then he does some weird like gas that warps Superman's mind and makes him think that Lois Lane is Doomsday.
Oh.
And then he causes Superman to kill Lois Lane, which then causes a nuclear bomb to explode in Metropolis and kill millions of people.
I didn't realize that he killed. I thought the Joker killed Lois Lane, which indirectly.
He causes Superman to do it.
Oh, wow.
Batman takes Joker into custody, and you have this scene where Superman breaks. Uh-huh. And he says, I'm tired of basically what a lot of people think about DC, of like, why are these, the heroes keep letting the villains win and they keep doing crazy stuff. Superman's like, I'm tired, I'm done, kills the Joker in custody. Batman's like, no, you can't do this, it's not the right way. Superman does it. And what happens is Superman basically makes this regime.
That becomes like his mantra.
He now is stopping all bad things from happening, and he's like basically like almost a tyrant.
Uh-huh.
And then you have the heroes that are trying to fight against him. And it's just an interesting thing of like, you understand where he's coming from because you also sympathize with the fact that these villains just keep doing crazy things, and obviously keeping him in prison isn't doing anything. So maybe, when do we come? But then at the same time, he has become this dictator tyrant person. Right. And so he is going about, and he's doing
justify
it,
the means.
Yeah, he's doing it in the sense of wanting to keep people safe and keep the world safe and the civilians safe, but at the same time as he's subjugating them. And there's like cameras all over the place now, stuff like that. And they're all being watched and stuff like that. It's a very interesting aspect, especially if this person is this superhero person who is now taking control.
It goes back to not becoming the villain, not becoming your enemy. You know, the path, if the path you have to walk to defeat your enemy is to become them, what good is it even defeating that enemy?
Mm-hmm.
Because now you've just replaced them, you know, which sounds like what happened in that story. That's very interesting for sure.
Definitely a heartbreaking story.
Yeah.
The start and the beginning of it. I mean,
Yeah.
Can't even imagine. But it's definitely interesting. And he makes a good villain, you know?
Briefly mention an interesting relationship, and definitely goes in line with the somewhat similar like backstory characters and which direction they go in. You have Thor and Loki. You know, they're both raised as sons of Odin. Of course, Thor is the older, the heir favored, and so there's slightly different experience, you know, being raised by Odin. And you have the whole Loki is not biologically Odin's
he's like
son.
an ice giant or something.
That whole thing, that complicates things. But you know, that makes for a complicated, you know, hero-villain relationship where you have, it creates empathy for Loki. Like it creates I don't know if empathy is the right word, but or sympathy is
Sympathy,
a better
probably,
word.
yeah.
Sympathy for Loki, because Thor is the hero. This is his brother. He cares about him, and you know, Odin cares about him. And so even though he's turning villainous, especially in like the first movie, like overtly, and Avengers, you feel the pain of, you know, having a sibling that you care about, and what would happen if they, you know, were evil. You'd want them to turn good. You'd want them to reconcile.
Nah, Jew is pretty evil. I'm kind of trying to get him out, not playing.
So, you know, but then for Loki, also Loki, you can have a villain too that an interesting villain can be a character that sometimes does the right thing, sometimes does good. Mm-hmm. You know, sometimes does what's necessary. Maybe there's a greater threat or a greater villain, and that they deal with somehow.
Those are always very interesting stories too.
Yeah.
Stories where the hero and the villain have to almost team up to defeat a greater threat. And dealing with the aspects of this person has restraints on what they will do, and this person doesn't have restraints on what they'll do.
Right.
I can't think of a specific story right now, but I know that's.
I mean, The Dark Knight a little bit, like Two-Face, almost kind of is that. He's almost all the way a villain, but he literally, like, he would have shot Joker, but he flipped the coin and it landed a certain way, so he didn't. Like, he knew Joker deserved it, but he decided to just tie his decisions to chance or whatever.
Which is a very interesting
because he
character
said it's
trope.
fair.
Yeah, it's a
It's
very
about being
interesting
fair.
character trope
Yeah.
in itself. That's a whole nother
But
podcast,
but yeah, anti-hero. Yeah, Riddick is one that I think of with the anti-hero.
I haven't seen that movie in so long, so I can't put any input in that.
He just that is the character. Like Chronicles of Riddick is that the movie of this guy is the villain. It's kind of like he's the hero we need, not the one we deserve. Like Batman, only he really isn't the one they deserve. Like he is a villain. The heroes don't trust him. They don't like him. The villains don't like him. They don't trust him. And yet he's just like, I don't like this guy being in charge. You know, he's a jerk. You know, and so he, you know, that it's an interesting story. I think.
No, it always that is always an interesting aspect of things. Of like, anti-heroes are just an interesting thing in general. Of just like they end up being the hero, but really their motivations are just not hero-esque at all. Of like, I just don't like this dude doing what he's doing, so I'm gonna stop him.
Well, they're unpredictable. Like Loki is very unpredictable. You know,
Deadpool was a good anti-hero.
yeah. I haven't seen that movie.
Just the character in general.
He's
The
kind of
movie's-
anti-hero.
The movie's alright. He's definitely an anti-hero.
Yeah.
He has no really morals at all, but he also is like a good guy technically.
Right. It's like if it just happens that his goals somehow end up lining up with the hero's goals, then
Except for the comic book where he kills the entire Marvel universe, including the writers. It's not a joke.
like Stan Lee, like he kills Stan Lee.
He killed the last panels of the comic book are him coming out of the panels and killing the writers.
Oh my word.
It's very weird. It's just I just thought of one. What was it? Oh man.
Is it a villain or an anti-hero?
I think both. You know who always makes a good villain?
Who?
A government.
Yeah.
The government usually makes a pretty good villain in stories.
Yeah. True.
It's just one of those. And the anti-heroes tend to pop up a lot in those stories too.
Right. Yeah, the people that they're actually criminals, but they're, I don't know, they're like criminals that are criminals because they've been like forced into a situation by like the government or whatever. But yeah, no, the government's a good example, because the government is thinking like the whole like understanding the motivations, right? It's like there's almost always it's like for the good of society. You know, it's like the argument is that this can't get out, the secret can't get out, or just not understanding the hero, somehow thinking that their motivations. It's kind of like there's a mixture of that in the Bourne movies, where they don't trust him because they can't control Bourne, but they also, part of the reason they're like, we don't know if we can trust him is because they're dirty secrets. If those dirty secrets get leaked, then it will, threaten stability, because it's like, if people find out how messed up we are, then nobody will listen to us and trust us and all this sort of thing. I mean, like, that's even go back to like real world stuff. I mean, go back to like Edward Snowden, stuff like that, where it's like,
it's true.
Whether you think you did the right thing or not, the government's like motivations in trying to get him and some of these other like whistleblowers is like the stuff that they're coming out with is messed up stuff. That there's a reason it's not just like, we don't want the bad guys to know. It's, we don't want everyone else to know, you know, and start to question and have to, give an account for it. So, but
it's a really good example of both kind of a hero and a villain.
What?
We can kind of, if you're ready, we can kind of end with this.
Yeah, spoiler warning for Mistborn.
The Lord Ruler in Mistborn.
Oh, yeah.
Great example of someone who is technically a villain and is kind of wrong in what they're doing, but at the same time is...
Yeah, no,
he is also protecting the world.
You do learn, like, it's an old book, but
I've definitely spoiled the warning. I should have said that before.
In those books, that's one of the more interesting things of those books is, like, when you get to the end and he kind of, like, cryptically says, you've doomed everything and you have no idea what I do for this world and all that sort of thing. And then to actually understand, like, he was a far smaller threat.
If anything, he was really... In a bad way, because he was not a good guy, but he was still protecting the world by what he was kind of doing. Right,
sort of ends justify the means, or he just didn't know a better way to do it, kind of thing. So ultimately, things ended up better, but they got worse first, and that's really like a big thing in that book series. In like the second and third book, is they're constantly like, did we really improve things? Did we really make things better? And there's some people that are still trying to live under the Lord Ruler's type of society, because they had stability, they had food, they had this, that, and the other, and they all of a sudden don't because Ben made a boo-boo.
Wonderful.
But that's a good example for sure of complicated villains. So
definitely complicated villains.
Yeah.
Not only complicated villains, complicated person who was, if you went back in the history of when he first became the Lord Ruler, he was technically a hero. He chose the right thing to become a hero.
No, true.
But he was corrupted.
Right.
And I think he was probably corrupted. Isn't it kind of like a thing that he was corrupted by that power, or was he just corrupted by greed? I can't remember. It's been a while. Or was he just...
I think to him it was maybe a superiority complex that, from what I remember, it was like, touching that power and seeing and understanding the way things really were. It was like, it didn't occur to him a way to defeat the enemy, the real enemy, or how to exactly fix things. And so he was just like, I have to just plan for the least, sort of almost like similar to Taravangian, like the thing that does the least harm saves the most people, over the long term. That's what I'm going to plan for, and who knows what his plan was long term, because he would have taken the power up again if he had been alive to, and maybe he would have tried other things or figured out something else, but never got the chance, But I don't think he was corrupted necessarily. I think he was already kind of a...
Yeah, it's been so long since
I think he took the power out of greed. But then when he took it, he realized that he had to give it up or something. Or maybe he even used it out of greed and then realized, oh, it's a good thing I did that.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with his own people, the way he did to them was for them to not figure out his little hacks on the magic system that he figured out.
That's true.
So that's why I would say he wasn't completely good. He did the right thing.
Did the right thing, but he wasn't a good guy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But
well, I don't know. Heroes and villains, man. Some of them are more complicated than others.
And depending on who's telling the story, you might be the hero, you might be the villain.
And good thing to always remember is sometimes the villain sees himself as the hero.
Almost always.
Yeah, sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't, but almost always they see themselves as
the Joker doesn't.
No.
Which is why he's a good villain.
No, he's comfortable in that position as a villain. Believes he's a villain worthy.
Everyone's good from their point of view.
From a certain point of view.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil. Well, then you are lost.
And scene. Well, we'll end it there. We'll see you next time.
With Narnia.
Narnia Caspian.
And maybe a special guest.
Ooh. From Narnia.
Ooh. Really?
This has been the Bridge of Two podcast.
Far, far away bridge.
Goodbye. Something happening. Now something's happening.
Hate leads to suffering.
Hate leads to suffering.